Welcome to my Sorare Journey, episode 107, where it is a huge day because it is my birthday. So I thought I would get on here and actually do an essence craft, not because it made sense, but because it was my birthday and it would be fun. So we're going to do that. Just quickly, I'll touch on how I got my essence, because you'll remember in the last video that I was saying I should not have really entered this arena. There's a lot of things I was learning actually, like obviously my team fitted perfectly, but the risk was Jury and Timber might not play. So what I should have done is enter the anytime arena, because all of these games kicked off at the same time, so I could have seen the lineups, put them in, and yeah, it's about learning. You know, there's a few things on Sorare recently, because I've not been staying as on top of things as I used to, that are just sort of slipping through the cracks. But in this case, it was negative, but in the next case, it was positive. Obviously, this team might have done nothing even if we didn't have Timber, but if I knew Timber wasn't starting, I probably wouldn't have played him. Openda over Tielemans, I don't even want to talk about it. When they score 6 goals, you think their striker would outscore their CDM, but whatever. Where I got lucky was actually in the next arena. Now, I didn't get lucky in terms of a performance. Well, I finished second, so in some ways I did get lucky in terms of a performance. But what was key was how I entered the... Let me just talk about it. So, team's done really well. Second, obviously, Rafinha. Okay, picked the wrong captain. Maybe I could have gone Romero. It was probably always going to be Rafinha. And that gets me 200 essence. Now, because it's an arena, you still get neutral essence, which I thought they'd actually remove from the competition. But from what I was reading yesterday, and feel free to confirm in the comments below, you get All-Star in All-Star competitions and under 23, but in Arena, it's neutral. And that meant absolutely nothing to me until it affected me. So what's happened is when I go to my rare essence and I click my essence, it's 100% Premier League. And that's key, because when I entered, as you would have seen in the last video, it was maybe 60% Premier League. But what happened is I had some contender in there, a bit of Premier League, maybe a bit of All-Star. And what happened is I entered it into the arena. I lost the contender sort of ness of it, because I lost that first big arena. And I made some of my essence back in that second arena. And because the only essence I had left was Premier League, it's now all Premier League, which is basically like a clue. So at this stage, I'm going to my essence, and let's talk about this, because I've been meaning to discuss in depth about it. So in terms of should you be using clues, it's probably a hot topic that people haven't really discussed enough, but it would be so key for helping you. So in a standard draw, I think everyone sort of agrees it's a waste of time. In a special tier 2, people will debate that, you know, I don't want my tier 2, I want my star. But if you're guaranteed a tier 2, if you know the league, I don't think it's, you know, too helpful. You couldn't... The problem is, let's say in my scenario, I know the league. The only benefits I can get are removing the worst 5 cards, which is super, super powerful, but it costs you 2 future crafts. So that's quite substantial. And then the second one is it basically gives you the nationality, which is only helpful if A, you don't know the league, or B, you're giving such a niche sort of nationality where you can predict the card. You know, there's only one star that is Bulgarian in the Premier League. You know, that sort of thing really helps you, but it's very niche to get. A lot of the times what you're going to get is that if you enter this, you're going to get, you know, say I'm doing my Premier League craft, I'm going to get 2 or 3 English players, and obviously they're probably your best selection anyway. You've got your Palmers, your Sakas, your Pickfords. So a lot of the time for me, nationality is completely wasted as well. So I agree. So I wouldn't use league unless you don't know the leagues, but you can also get a good vibe from your essence. Nationality seems a bit wasted to me, especially if you know the league. And then finally, you've got your worst 5 cards getting rid of. Now, in a special tier 2, it doesn't have too much upside, doesn't have too much downside. In a special star, it has loads of upside, but you've still got a 1 in 5 chance. So the odds are forever against you there as well. And then a special full star, my opinion would be you're getting a star no matter what. A tier 1 or a star, like obviously you'd rather the star, but you've won, you know, it doesn't matter. You might as well just take the luck. So I think the special star is a bit of a trick. You know, I've seen it firsthand in my very first crafts. I was using all the clues and I got to the point where it didn't really help me anyway. Because in my special star, I was narrowed down to the Premier League of Portugal, 3 English people, and some other nationality, which I wasn't going to pick. I think it was Irish. So it's like, even then, I've narrowed it down to 1 of 4, but I used every single clue available, which would be like 4 extra crafts. So, for me, I think the best thing is standard, you don't use anything. Special tier 2, you could potentially use nationality. This is, of course, for me, when I know the league. Special star, near impossible to get anyway, so just try your luck. And in special full star, you're getting something good. So, saying all that, I don't have enough for any clues, so I'm just going to rip the Essence Craft, hope for the best. The only point to note is I've got very lucky with my rare crafts in terms of being in these special lobbies. So I'm almost guaranteed a standard, which sort of removes all the fun anyway. But yeah, 100% Premier League. Let's get into it. Standard. Okay, we knew that was coming. So last time and always we went 7. It was so bad we started hitting like different numbers and it worked a lot. But this is episode 107 of my Sorare Journey and the 7th of my birthday. So we'll just go for it. It's a standard anyway. We hope for the best. Premier League from Leeds, Lucas Nemecha. Let's see how that is. Harry Maguire was there. Yeah, that's sort of the best we could have done. We'll be claiming him. He could have some good fixtures. You know, he's a good player against sort of your Burnleys, maybe Sunderland. So for, you know, a standard craft, you take it. In terms of his price, he's about £16 you can buy him for. Or if you're looking at whether he starts or not, he got a goal. That must have mean he came on against Everton, I think. Yeah, he played 30 minutes, got a goal. And then did he play more minutes against Arsenal, played 32. And then he started against Newcastle. So potentially he's making his way into the team. Obviously nothing crazy. Maybe a birthday present, maybe a not birthday present. But let's chat about my lineups, because this is how the current squad is looking. We've sold a couple more players. We got rid of Odegaard. We got rid of Dubravka. So in terms of the squad, I'm happy with it. But you would have seen in the last video that basically my midfielder for the next 2 weeks is going to be sort of a problem area. If you're thinking that, maybe you should go and try and solve that issue immediately. But when I was looking actually more in depth at my lineups and who I'd buy and who I'd sell and things like that, it gets a little bit more difficult because of your bonuses. So obviously this is currently my team 1. I've debated splitting up Salah and Wirtz, but it doesn't really make sense. Aït-Nouri and Bruno Fernandes, I don't really like having in the same team because they're playing each other, but they're in the positions where they can both rip a score. You know, Bruno, penalty goal or a random assist, and Aït-Nouri just winning his duels. And then Pickford sort of probably not the most likely to keep a clean sheet, but because I think he'll be getting shots stopped, and I think distribution-wise he might be good as well, with Villa, who are struggling, sort of makes sense to put them in my first team. But the second team might be better. Let me know what you guys think. So, providing Cole Palmer plays, again, super strong team. And the most ridiculous part is that I'm getting a 6% boost across everyone without forfeiting anything. I'm not picking worse players. So, Paulinho, Robinson, Leno, they all sort of bring the average down, so I can actually enable this. The only point to note is whether you'd go Van Dijk or Palmer as captain, and I've got to be very careful because Van Dijk's average, yeah, it's going up, so now it's actually over cap. So I think my understanding is because I locked this team in before the start of the week, I think I can still get my 6%. But if I was to change the team in any way, because Van Dijk's average has gone up, I actually no longer get my 6%. So the teams will either stay exactly like this, or, you know, it makes a lot of sense to bring Robinson in here and Leno in here. But then neither team gets the 4% boost. So it's tricky because I do want to go out and get maybe a McAllister. You know, he's someone that's not too expensive. He's in that £200 range. My only issue is how Szoboszlai playing well affects his minutes, because now Frimpong's going to be back as well. The other reason, now maybe I'm getting carried away with the bonuses here, but I also get 2% bonus because I never play more than 2 cards from the same club. So I've got 2 Liverpool players here. If I brought in McAllister, I'd lose that. And 2% across a whole team of a good score can actually be quite substantial. And then keep in mind, you are removing the best midfielder in the game. You know, history, scoring-wise, Fernandes is the best midfielder. Passing, he just picks up so many points. He could win a lot of duels in that midfield. I do think they'll lose the game, but I do think they'll score. So when you're thinking, obviously McAllister's got a better fixture, just go out and buy him, you're like, well, I'm replacing him long term with a worse option in the short term. I'm paying a substantial amount of money, you know, for £200. We're in the star territory, you know, we're probably tier 1. It wouldn't take a lot to get a Rodri or another Fernandes. Whoever you want in midfield is like your perfect option. That's always going to play, always nailed. And then because we'd have, say, McAllister in the top team, we drop Fernandes into the second team instead of Paulinho. And then you're out of options. You have no ability to get that 6%, which I don't know how impactful it will be. I just feel that an extra 4%, you know, for having a low average could be super beneficial. You know, out of Aït-Nouri and Robinson, I probably think Aït-Nouri slightly outscores him, but then Leno slightly outscores Pickford if we like run these simulations multiple times. So in theory, you'd put Leno in and swap them, but I like the correlation between if my goalkeeper has a good game, then my defender's going to have a good game most of the time. So it's been causing me a bit of a headache, and I sort of conclude at the minute that the best thing to do is to not play a team. Not go out and buy new cards, because it's easy to say, like, oh, I've got a weakness here and a weakness there. But if you just go out and spend more money, that's also a weakness, because you've got a higher total cost to try and return. And my total cost already is, you know, 3.7k net at the minute. So, you know, that's a lot of money for a team. You know, if I come first place, I would pay that off, because it's now £4,000 to the winner, isn't it, in Div 1. So it's $4,000. Second place, I wouldn't pay it off. And then if I win Div 2, it's really bad, actually. I didn't realise how bad that is. So yeah, only £800, which is equivalent to 4th place. Yeah, 1,000 essence. Do you get 1,000 essence in here as well? Only 500. So again, we knew this at the start of the season, but being in Division 1 is absolutely key. That's why I've gone star heavy this year. Last year I went more collection depth heavy. So in theory, you just play your stars everywhere. I consider Aït-Nouri a star. I consider Fernandes a star. I pretty much consider Pickford a star. So this is just, I should be able to roll this team out every week, because regardless of their scores, you know, you should always get a good score because they're a star card, you know, near enough all of the time. Away to Man City would be probably one of their weakest fixtures, but it's not Arsenal, it's not Liverpool. they have a good record against City. You know, it's sort of their bogey team. City seem to have bogey teams of Spurs and United, which is quite funny. But yeah, just a really tricky scenario. I would also like to sort of strengthen elsewhere, because say if I got another midfielder, I could just drop in this team. But this team isn't going to pick up any points, really, is it? So I don't know. You know, if you wait longer, typically cards go down in price. I've looked at Gravenberch. I've looked at Eze. Eze's a really interesting one. Only £150 for Gravenberch. Eze's in that £220 region last time I checked. Yeah, 220. Could probably get him for 190, maybe a bit higher. But he's, you know, you don't know where he fits in terms of set pieces and stuff. So, and then, you know, when I'm talking about correlation, if I got another team involved, it's like, I would prefer a Rodri, so I get collection bonus, or I'd prefer, this is a key one as well, Enzo Fernandez. So he's pretty nailed. He's a good scorer, exactly like McAllister. But his problem is, last time I checked, he's slightly more expensive. And I don't know if his average is any better. Because with this, you get the collection bonus of Palmer. But again, I feel like I'm just spending money for the sake of spending money at the minute. I don't actually have enough, so I have 158 and 46, so call it 207% or £7 credits. So I can afford Gravenberch, I can afford, you know, I could probably do a trade deal for a Fernandez, which I've got no problem. A lot of, you know, I'm trying to trim the fat of my classic cards, because I just find that I've got quality stars in every position, and at the start of the season I was looking to play 3 classic lineups and definitely secure all these prizes, but now I've seen how difficult it is. You know, I'd happily let Trent go, maybe Fabian Ruiz and Rafinha. So I don't want to do it just yet. I want to give it a bit more time in classic, but rewards are just so hard to get. You know, my next week's team, because I've got because I go for this 2%, it means that I need a lot of good fixtures. I've not actually had that yet, so I don't know. It's a lot to think about. I think probably the best thing to do is nothing, but I really don't want to do nothing, because, you know, we're going to roll forward to next week and we'll have Fernandez and Paulinho both with really difficult fixtures. I don't know, guys, but if you did like this, like it, subscribe to the channel. You can support the channel financially with a link in the description if you want. Completely optional, but besides that, all the best to you. Cheers.